This is Coach Kopak again. This time we're taking a look at Sophia Carroll right here in lane 8, her 200 freestyle at a 2025 A state meet earlier this year in February. Off the start here, if I can get it to play. There we go. Okay, so let's back up just a tad. I want to take a look at lane 7 actually to start. So look at lane 7. She's sitting here with her hands on her knees, creating a lot of tension in her arms. Lane 6 is already here, flexing about as hard as she can before the starter has said anything. And Sophia is very nice and relaxed over here. The only thing I'll say, if she's set up where she needs to be before the starter says take your mark, which is good, but her back foot is slightly to this angled. I'd like to bring her heel a little bit to the left. Other than that, it's really good. So the buzzer goes off there. And the first thing to react is her legs. Now, looking at her hands, I know she was not going to do anything with her arms because they're in a very awkward position to actually have any power generated. So if she reacts with her legs, her arms go straight into streamline. She's actually in streamline, head locked in before her feet even leave the blocks. So if you're not going to use your arms on the start, that's about as good as your arms can do. Otherwise, in the air, tight streamline, good entry with the upper body. Her knees bend just a tad as she's hitting the water. Could just create a little bit of tension in the quads and straighten out the legs for a cleaner entry. There's a pretty good angle on the underwaters. Now you see Sophia has a pretty solid back kick coming up towards the surface of the pool, but then when she's kicking down, it stops right there and it doesn't go much past her hips. This is a really common problem for most swimmers. It's even elite world-class swimmers that you only see every 4 years on NBC during the Olympics and World Champs who don't have a very strong front kick. Developing that is really what sets the difference between the great underwater kickers and the average ones. So that's something we can definitely work on with Sophia and most everyone on the team, honestly. All right, so on the breakout, it's going to be a little hard to see because of the people, but every breakout in the race, she's going to look forward right before she breaks out. That's the only problem I have with her head position in the whole race. She keeps a real steady head throughout the race, through the breast, through the strokes. Even on the start, you saw her head was really great, but her breakouts every time she's looking slightly forward, and it's really for no reason. So that's an easy adjustment to make. Here, she takes her last breath. Wait, did I miss it? Yeah, so she takes her last breath here before the flags, and she's going to go through the whole flip turn, and then she breathes again there. So she's going, that's probably 10, 11 meters without a breath on the first wall, which is really great if she maintained that for the whole race, but we'll see as it goes on that she does not. So with Sophia's stroke, let's pause it here. She has a real nice exit by her hips, and she swings around pretty good with the momentum. It's a pretty wide stroke. Her stroke stays pretty similar regardless of the distance. Like she goes 24 in the 50 freestyle, but we all think of her as a distance swimmer, so it's kind of interesting. When she recovers, though, this is like her real unique stroke. It's the way she places her hand in front. You see, she's set it up right here, great angle on the hand, but she's starting to, even though it's blurry, it's starting to crash with her shoulder and bicep area. I have no problem with the way she's like taking her strokes. It's just really at the placement at the end. Maybe if we played around with the rotation just a little bit, but she rotates pretty well for the most part. It's just her elbow right here could come up and to the side a little bit, and it would help avoid a lot of that crashing motion that we see right there. But her hand is a real nice entry point every time. That's how she sets it up. That's good. So coming into the turn here. Oh, don't stand. Okay. So, well, for what we can see, she does a nice job bending at the hips, reaching down. That's a nice low flip turn. Can't see all of it, but it seems like a pretty solid bounce off. And then again, she's going to look up. It's just a slight, let's back up. It's a slight tilt of her forehead and chin coming up, and then she corrects it going back down. So I really don't know why she does this. It brings your hips lower and just kind of puts you at a little awkward position as you break out. Real minor detail. Okay. So now, coming to this wall. Oh, it must be the next wall then. There's, okay. So notice here with her breath, she's coming, oh, let's back up. So as she's breathing, her hand's placed up front. Ideally, you want to keep your hand there, your arm up front, gliding while you take the breath. As she's breathing, her arm is way underwater. So look, her head is now where it needs to be, and her arm is, it's hard to see, but it looks like it's pointing straight down to the pool. It might even be a little bit past perpendicular with the floor of the pool. So we need to hold that arm up front way, way longer than we currently are. Okay, so play it. So now notice, coming into the wall, this is I think 100. She's taking a breath, stroke flip, so it's a breath going into the wall, and then coming out of the wall, breath on the first stroke. So that first wall, we're taking a breath before the flags, we're not breathing again until after the flags, and then now we're breathing first stroke in, first stroke out. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency, I guess, throughout the race. So instead of taking that big gap on the first 25 and then having to take a breath in and out of the wall just on the fourth 25, if we could maybe bring it back so we're taking like two strokes flip and then come out, 2 strokes breathe, or something of the sort, so that we can better adjust our breathing patterns. Looking at the kick here. So now we're coming into the last 25. Sophia has a real strong kick. She's kept a steady kick throughout the race. Now we're coming into the home stretch. She's really picking it up, and she's doing a nice job of racing this girl. In the lane next to her, she does not breathe from, oh, she did breathe there. She goes a couple breaths without breathing into the wall, which is fine. On the finish, she's a little bit flat. She hits this wall at the very peak of that stroke, so a minor adjustment could be being able to take that stroke and have a slight extension. But overall, that's a solid finish. It does look like she's kind of tilting her head up just at the wall. That could just be the angle. That's something to keep an eye on to see if she lifts her head as she touches moving forward. Okay, so I'm not going to look at the board because blurring out the names is more work than the whole video, rest of the video combined. So I'm just going to talk about her splits here on the ending screen, or at the finish. So Sophia's splits here, she's out 27.4, second 50, 29.8, third 50, 30.4, and then brings it home in a 29.6, so it's a 57.3 out, and then 00 flat coming back. Split-wise, that's really, really nicely done. I'd obviously like to see that third 50 be under 30. If she takes that, it's 30.4, she does 29.9 right there. That puts her at her best time, essentially 156. So it's really one well-swum race. This is a long season for Sophia, dealing with some injuries and cross-country and whatever happened to over the summer last year. So overall, she put together a really nice race split-wise. She's at 24 and 54 in the 1500 respectively, a freestyler. So I think taking out 57, I think she's able to go 53, honestly, in the 100 free at least. So she has some front half speed to play with there. And she's, like I said earlier, she's kind of a distance swimmer. We'll see her as that. So I have a lot of confidence in her to be able to take it out a little faster and then still bring it back within 2.5, 3 seconds of that takeout time. So, cool. Next video.